All right, everybody, welcome to the GRAMMY U Masterclass presented by Mastercard. You guys get that? Masterclass, Mastercard, yeah, tie-in. Somebody thought about that. My name is Taylor Hanson. I am so thrilled to be your moderator today for this Masterclass. I am a musician, I'm a songwriter, and producer, and also very proud to be the current Texas chapter board president. So for the chapters across the country, there's different chapters that have different boards, different governors. I'm really thrilled to be a part of the Texas chapter. So shout out to the Texas chapter. Yes. One of the wonderful things about getting involved in the Recording Academy and the community is to be able to do things like this today and to be able to welcome you guys to this gathering where we get to not just talk about music, but actually have conversations with people that have created, have had a career in music, and have done amazing things like our featured guest today. So I'm going to introduce this incredible guest. One of the things that is very, very difficult to do is to not just make music and make a career out of music, but to do it for a long time, to do it for a lifetime. And our featured guest today, Mr. Andrew McMahon, has truly done that. Get some woo for that. Okay, come on. In today's masterclass, I will be talking to Andrew McMahon about building and sustaining a long-term career in the music industry, which he has done, so that you can all prepare for your successful journey as a graduate from college and hopefully a career in music in the future. Andrew, over the last 2 decades, has experienced musical rebirth many times. I mean, he has started and launched incredible bands. He's been a solo artist, from Something Corporate to Jack's Mannequin, to Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, his current work as a solo artist. And this is an artist that you guys are really, really lucky to get to hear from, because he has not just talked the talk, he has really walked the walk. And one of the other things that's special about today is he's also a dear friend of mine. And so when I was asked to join this, it was a very easy yes, because I'm about to throw these cards over here. And we're just going to talk. No, I'm very, very thrilled to welcome today your teacher, Mr. Andrew McMahon. Give it up. All right. They give us soft chairs.
I'm more nervous for this than I was for any of the shows.
Oh my God, no, not at all, not at all. So fun to get to do this.
Good to see you, bud.
Yeah. So I skipped ahead and I didn't read over. I'm going to read over a few more specifics because you should be more nervous. No. No, this is all just good stuff, just to make sure everybody here knows a little bit more about you, because I want to make sure that regardless whether you're a fan or you're discovering either one of us, that people understand kind of where we come from. So the East Coast born SoCal-based artist, co-founded the pop punk outfit, Something Corporate. And after he released that, 3 studio albums as Jack's Mannequin, three studio albums, so 2 bands, multiple different projects. And in 2014, Andrew released the debut album under Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, featuring the breakout top 5 alternative radio singles Cecilia and The Satellite, which I love, and Fire Escape, fantastic. McMahon has received an Emmy nomination, released a memoir, 3 pianos, and sold nearly 2.5 million albums across all his musical projects. This guy is a player right here, all right? Incredible. And one of the things that I think is particularly exciting about what you've done is you've never been satisfied to just be a studio rat, but you've really built a live show reputation. One of the first people that I met that connected with you was our dear friend C.J. Erickson, who had worked with you on early records, and loved the records. But when I really became a fan was when I saw you perform, and I thought, wow, this guy can captivate an audience. I mean, for real, amazing. And so, first of all, let's share the love about our friend CJ.
Yeah. I mean, CJ was in the studio with me, I think, on the very first EP for Something Corporate, so we're talking like 2001.
Wow.
And went on to engineer and then eventually produce and co-produce some Jack's Mannequin records as well. So we had a crew, my producer Jim Wirt, there was just like a little team that holed up in this studio called 4th Street Recording in Santa Monica, and it became kind of my home. we did something corporate albums there. And then when I started getting the itch to explore and kind of learn how to produce records on my own and how to take one of my own songs and really just build it up from scratch as my vision. It was Jim and me and CJ, me spending every dollar that I had from something corporate trying to make a record for a side project that I wasn't sure if anybody was going to hear.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. And so I purposely mentioned CJ and a mutual friend because I have a little point in mentioning that, because what it's about is I have seen there's those that keep relationships, those that have that, and those that you see kind of a trail of bodies behind in their career. And frankly, there are successful artists that are kind of known for, well, they only work with that person once, and they only, and there's just kind of a, but you're one of those people that that anybody that's worked with you, anybody that's there, it's always great things to say. And I'm not.
Well, I don't know if that's 100% true, but
no? Well, from my experience.
No, I'm teasing. I mean, I think relationships are important, right? I think in every business, it's like, and in life, if you don't take care of your relationships, what's the point?
Well, some people think it's just to step on the next person to get ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and look, that might get you far, but I feel like, I know you, Taylor. I mean, it's like the people that we know in this business that have survived the longest, I've tended to find are the ones that actually really take care of the people that look after them and that help them collaborate and create. And I move on from lots of creative relationships, but only out of seeking, a new way to make sound. It's never like, bye, I'm done with you, and then inevitably we all circle back to each other and make things again,
Well, it's never, so creativity is this, it doesn't just apply to music, right? Creativity is all around us, but music particularly, I'm just thinking about how it's in there in culture all around the planet. Every country, every little town, you keep going smaller and smaller and smaller. You can't escape the use of music. Yeah. And so I like to say music, it's almost an unfair advantage against other art forms. Because it's such a, we all respond so emotionally to it.
Yeah, it's visceral. It's like, you can hear a song, and if it finds you in the middle of a day and you're going through something and you hear the right song, that is just it's imprinted on you for the rest of your life, you know? And that's why, I think that's why I was attracted to it in the first place. It was like, I was going through something when I was a kid, and I found the piano, and it was just like, oh, it's here behind the keys of this piano singing, and it was like, just dumb little songs about, a thing I was grieving, but it connected me more deeply to myself, and then I think that's always been the mission with my songwriting, is like, start there. If it wakes something up inside of me and connects the dots and brings something truthful, then in a perfect world, you can put it together in just a way that it might do that for somebody else. Maybe not everybody, but for the somebody that it does do that for, you create a bond,
Yeah, I completely agree. So let's rewind to that. You talked about, wow, this woke up something in me, writing dumb songs. Probably weren't that dumb, because the fact you even used, I was not grieving. I was grieving something, so I wrote a song. Already, it's probably less likely to be dumb. You're already intuitive and empathetic, I would imagine. So just rewind a little bit to that spark. Because we want to, we're here to specifically, the theme is this idea of longevity and of having a career in music, not just having, you had a hit and, faded away, but keeping that and building it. So it starts at the beginning. What was that spark like for you?
So the genesis of my arriving at the piano, I lost, my uncle passed away from cancer when I was 9, and I was like the sensitive one in the family. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. All my brothers and sisters were like great athletes. I couldn't hit a baseball off a tee. You know what I mean?
You were the Sandlot kid. You were the the ball.
He even got better by the end of the season. Not me. So
it's a generational statement. Yeah. Sorry, you guys.
But I think the thing that happened for me was, I was going through this. I was really upset. I was, like I said, super sensitive, and it just hit me really hard. And so it was at the piano that all of a sudden, I was able to sort of speak that out loud. I was able to find a voice for that. But then I think I also felt like I found a piece of myself in the process, right? It was like, oh, this is my thing. You know, you grew up in a big family. You know, everybody's got their thing, and sometimes if you're on the outside of that and you don't have it, you're seeking. And so I think my sort of origin story in music is really massively about self-discovery, right? And finding a vehicle to talk to the world about who I am. You know,
you're finding a way to say something. I mean, again, music is, we know this from across the world, but it really does allow you somehow to get to a phrase or get to a describing of something that is very, very hard to say in any other way.
It's I feel like it can exercise your subconscious, which I think is actually really what's powerful for me. That's you're channeling into like,
right.
Oh, this is the thing I'm feeling, but I don't know. I can't think it. You know, yet. And there's just those times at the piano for me where it's like all of a sudden like just the words will fall out and you'll go, oh my gosh,
where did that come from? Who thought that?
That's what I'm going through right now. You know, and I was just addicted to that feeling, you know, and so I just never left the piano. You know, I would come home from school and I would play until my parents made me go to bed, or my brothers and sisters came and threw things at me because I was destroying their time with their friends by just like banging away. And I just sort of chased that feeling through life until it kind of aligned with the potential for it to reach larger audiences.
Well, keeping the path slow, not jumping so far ahead, because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, of course.
Do you remember that song? Do you know what
was
that? Was it
I
specifically?
It was called Believe, and it was like it was very much a you know, kind of an existential, you know, search for my uncle somewhere out there that he wasn't, you know, now with us on Earth. Yeah.
Well, see, again, we know that it was not a stupid song.
It was. I mean, it was a lovely song.
It's
Taylor,
a deep
thank
song.
You. Thank you.
But so at 9 years old, you're thinking, you find this channel.
Mm-hmm.
Today I was talking with my son who plays piano as well, and we were talking about Leon Russell,
Mm-hmm.
loving Leon Russell.
Yeah.
And you know, talking about kind of that idea of when you discover something that is the aha. So you have that, and you realize, oh my God, I can say things.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're 9. Walk forward to it becoming, you know, more than the guy in the living room that family's like, hey, Andrew, would you please stop? You know,
Well,
you know, they were probably all actually just going, wow, this is really awesome, but will you please stop?
Yeah, no, I mean,
because I need to go to
the
sleep.
beauty for me, and I'm sure you had a similar experience, you know, my parents, my brothers and sisters were ultimately just very supportive. I think they're all musical people. They all loved music, and I think they saw that what I was doing wasn't, you know, it wasn't like a 9-year-old playing piano. It was like somebody trying to figure out how to write a good song, you know, and they saw the passion, and they were always very committed to helping me chase that. So, you know, and I was always restless. I mean, I was like had my mom made me a demo tape when I was like 10. She found a producer in the Yellow Pages, and we drove an hour from Columbus, Ohio to this guy's house to like do demos for 3 of my songs. And she it was something I asked her, but she did it, you know, and so then I had like a demo tape when I was like 10, and I'm like sending them to, you know, at that point you could go to like the Barnes and Noble, and they had these directories of all the A&R guys in the music business.
Hold on a second.
Yeah. Swear to God.
First of all, Barnes and Noble is a bookstore, guys.
Yeah.
They sold these things. They'd print things on paper.
Yeah. But so they had these massive directories, and so I would package my it was my 10-year-old demo tape.
I did not know about this.
I want you to hear this one day. It's like
we chased people not through a directory. That's impressive.
Yeah.
So you found the directory.
So I started mailing out demo tapes. I don't know if I got one letter back, but I did it, you know, and then I just kept doing that sort of thing, you know. By the time we moved to California, I think I was in the 8th grade, and then I think by my freshman year of high school, I made another one of these demo tapes. One of these teachers in my school that was like in the musical theater department. He had like a little home studio, and so he helped me record 3 or 4 songs, and then slowly I started kind of playing out and finding my feet. You know, it was like I was a super awkward kid, and I always played piano for my friends, right? Or if there was a piano in the living room jams,
tons of that.
But it wasn't really until high school where I said, like, it really, I wrapped my identity up, and it was like, okay, well, I'm like a very awkward child, but one thing I have going for me is, like, I can play the piano and I can write a song. And so, like, I was in the theater department, and I would play my songs at lunchtime, and kind of started finding my people, you know, and finding people who liked music the same way I did. And made my first band, like, I think probably my sophomore year. I was like, okay, nobody's ever gonna hear these songs if I don't, like, have a band. So I started my first band, which was really just a first iteration of something corporate. It was a different name. There was a couple different guys in it, but it was the beginning.
Do you? I was going to ask about a slight detour.
Yeah, yeah.
Which before we got to something corporate and establishing, okay, this is not just the garage band, but it becomes like you really break onto the stage as a national act. But we're talking about being, you know, college students working your way through. I had a very, I consider it kind of, in one way, I missed out on certain things because, like you, I was working really young and didn't have as many education experiences. But sounds like that specifically, you had an educator that really saw you in a situation where maybe it wasn't everything, but you had a real example of, wow, somebody went, you know what, I see what you're doing, and I'm actually going to step in. Is that a pivotal part of the development?
There were a few, actually. Yeah. So in my 5th grade class, there was a teacher named Molly Davis, and I was new to this school in Ohio, and like very, you know, like the new kid, and she had a piano in her classroom though, and I think one day I just sort of played it, like, just when everybody was gone, you know, just being like the loner.
You snuck in there. There's a piano in this classroom.
Yeah. Loner new kid, you know, and she heard me and was so sweet about it, and really, like, she got it. You know, I think she got it the way my mom and dad got it, and started encouraging me to play songs in class for the kids when we were, you know, if we had recess inside one day or whatever. And then, like, was the first person there was a assembly at school where they bring in this jazz band that was, like, popular in Columbus, and he does a set, and she worked it out so that I would get to go up and sing one of my songs, like, opening up for the jazz band on stage in front of the whole school. And that was really the first teacher that did that for me. In high school, there were two. There was this guy named E.J. Stanton, who was kind of like, he would come in and put the bands together to play for the musicals, right? And he was really kind, and he helped me make that first demo tape. But I think the number one was this teacher named Ray Woods. He was the choir teacher. He taught music theory. He was sort of in charge of the music department. I didn't really want to take any of those classes.
Yeah, you're like, that's not my thing.
Yeah, like I just really
were the piano guy.
Yeah, I just want to play and sing songs. Like, I just wasn't as interested. But he knew, and he'd seen me in his choir room, and so he basically said, you can come to any of my classes. You don't need to take a grade. You don't need to do the work. But I think you'd benefit from coming and just be there. You know, like, I know you don't want to, this is not your thing. And so he basically just took me under his wing. He taught me to read fake books as a kid. He basically taught me all the things that I would need to do if I was going to play in a band and speak the language of music, you know, to other musicians. I'd already taken classical for a while, but I kind of stepped out of that. And he was like, no, well, you're going to need to read chord charts. You're going to need to know. And he just, like, he showed me the way and taught me how to talk to my bandmates and talk to other musicians in a studio.
And this is coming from a singing teacher.
Yeah,
first and foremost.
Yeah, great piano player too. But yeah, he's a high school. My high school teacher. Yeah, he was. And I mean, even after high school, I would go back, and I would when I was on tour, I'd come back and be like, I never took a vocal lesson. I was like, am I singing okay? And he kind of did an assessment. He's like,
it's like, well,
he pats me. No, he patted me on the back. He goes, you're fine. Yeah. Go.
You'll be fine. You're in a rock band. That's not real singing.
Yeah. No, exactly. But yeah.
Well, give a round of applause for our educators.
Yeah.
Our teachers. I mean, that's some real powerful stuff, because, you know, all of us, you know, especially in this, you know, there's a sort of an American identity of, like, bootstrapping it, making it. You know, I started with nothing and I built it. People talk about, you know, he, you know, self-built this or built this on his own, and nobody builds anything completely on their own. Everybody has somebody that leans in and says, even if it's a parent, if it's a cousin, if it's a buddy, if it's a teacher, that says that, even if it's just being seen, you know, like, hey, I see that you're reaching for this, you know. And of course, sometimes the detractors are also the motivators.
Yeah, that's, you know, I was going to say the same thing. It's sometimes I think you can get the greatest lessons from the people that don't believe in you, you know, and you have to find that sort of self-belief, right? You have to do this and to stay in this business. it is a requirement. I mean, I'm an insecure artist like everybody else, but there has to be a well somewhere in there that says you can do it, right? And I certainly, I mean, I have one teacher who I loved her. She was great, but she just thought I was absolutely out of my mind when I decided not to go to college and pursue the band. And Sunday Court was already doing well at this point.
Right.
And she was like, "You are making a huge mistake with your life." Like, I mean, she on multiple
She
occasions,
leaned in.
multiple occasions sat me down to say as much. And you know, and she really did have my best interest at heart. And I don't fault her for it on any level. But I was like, I'm gonna do this. I think it's gonna work out. I was also like, I'm also selling out the venue down the street right
You
now.
should
Like,
come.
it's, it's not like like this isn't just some like thing I'm doing on a lark. But I took a lot of motivation from that.
Well, so I'm hearing a couple of gems that you're touching on. Maybe people should hear this more. I almost think that should be its own book. It's like just the word no.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just have to sit with that. Start with no. And learning, you just said an insecure artist, which I think people that aren't performers so often they go, oh, look at that, look at the audience, cheering, and that guy's face is on a t-shirt, and that person becomes famous, even if it's at a small level. The high school band that's now like the cool kid or whatever the band that people are showing up for in the local coffee shop or local bar. There's such an elevation of self that people look up to that. Oh, I could never do that. When in fact, as we both know, and the insecurity that most creators carry around is so high.
Oh yeah.
And so maybe that's even a bigger deal to have gotten over that and still reached for creativity. But I think when somebody is trying to decide, man, should I do this?
Right.
And they're going butterflies and like, I want to, I remember hearing about Carly Simon throwing up before every show,
Yeah.
And if somebody's feeling those nerves, what would you say to somebody that is at that early point and going, well, I'm too insecure to even go on a stage. But I know I crave this. I know I want to do this, because I certainly understand that.
You just have to do it. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but like, I could give you a million examples. Even in the later stage of my career, this version of it, a lot of it was launched with me changing the way I collaborated with people, right? And so
What was that change like?
That change, I was a guy who was used to just sitting at a piano and writing my songs, soup to nuts, and going into a studio with a producer and building them up. And there was
building them up, which you've multi-tracking it.
Yeah, exactly.
So building one piece, adding the next for people that haven't lived in studios.
Yeah, and so, but I was craving something different, and I talked to a publisher friend of mine. I said, can you just put me in the weirdest room possible? Like, can you just, like, find me a songwriter that maybe wouldn't write a song that I would ever even think to write, or a producer or whatever, and like, I just want to hang out and see what happens, and it really launched this whole third iteration of my career, was this thing where I would be so nervous in my car going to these things. I would almost be turning around. Right. And then I'd get in the room, and probably for the first hour I would just be like, just clammed up. And eventually I was really lucky, again, to speaking to teachers. A couple of these guys were like, you're here because you're invited here. Like, do what you do best. Let's go. You know, and broke me out of that. And so now I still feel those nerves every time I go, but I know enough to say, okay, but I'm just going to try.
So are you talking about this, what you're speaking, or are you talking about where you are today? With
So like,
Wilderness?
You think about a song like Cecilia and the Satellite. I wrote that with two dudes I met that afternoon.
Right.
And we became dear friends. We bonded over this song and ended up making more music together. But I walked into that room and my wife was pregnant, and very close to her due date. And I walked in the room. I was like, "You guys, I'm here, but if I get the phone call, I'm going to have to drive home." And James looks at me and goes, "Well, I guess we're writing about you becoming a father." And I was like,
"And there you go."
I was like, "That sounds corny. We can't do that, dude." And then but we talked then for an hour until we found the first words, and then all of a sudden it just opened up. And that happened because I said yes to something that made me incredibly uncomfortable and that I was nervous about. And so my best advice is, if you find yourself in that moment where something could be really good for you, but you're scared or you don't feel worthy, that's the moment to say yes, right? I think that's the moment to lean in, because that's where you learn the most. That's where you get the most, and that's where you build the most. And confidence comes with that, but I'll be honest, I still feel that fear every time I walk into a recording session. I still feel that fear that it's not going to come together, but that fear drives me to push past it and prove that fear wrong, you know?
Well, and the reason I'm so glad we're making sure to clarify that this is not you talking about when you were 9. It's talking
No,
about
no, I'm not
you're
9 in this one.
Yeah, is I mean, maybe somebody's like, but wait, I'm going to feel nervous my whole life, damn it. But to really, when you see people that have done it and you've been so successful doing it, and you have fans and you've experiences, to still have the honesty to say, hey, this was challenging, but I did it. It should be an encouragement that all of us are pushing our own boundaries is part of the process of making anything worthwhile, I think.
Yeah.
And hopefully things, you know, hey, when it comes easy, man, that's fantastic. But I remember somebody writing a song with me, and we wrote the song, and I was really happy with it. They looked across at me and they said, if writing a good song is as painful as your face looks, I don't know if I can write one. And I remember thinking, what face? What are you talking about? I don't look at them. And so I wasn't in pain, but I think about each of us are going through this path, and somebody for you that was like you chose to pick new collaborators. So it wasn't even just that you were invited; you'd actually been the instigator to. And so to push yourself, I think, we lost it. Speaking of that, we can share mics. I'll trade you.
What was your question, Taylor?
Question was, here we go.
He's also tech support.
Yeah. Who knows how to fix this? Who knows how to fix this microphone?
We're just going to get closer.
We're going to get really close. What I was saying was, you chose to push yourself to be in that situation. So, meaning you were already recognizing it, and the first facing of your fear actually was, you know what? A bigger picture conversation that I know about myself as an artist is I want to be challenged. I want to be. So you'd already taken a leap. Yes, somebody figured it out. Perfect.
Yeah, I think that's sort of, if there's any lesson to be gleaned from what I've been through, I think, one, I am restless, so I have a restless nature. I tend to, get up one mountain and go like, okay, it's pretty up here. Like, where's the next one, right? I think there's a part of me is just built that way.
Right.
But I think I find inspiration by pushing myself, and I find inspiration by doing maybe what's not always safe or advised. I mean, when something corporate broke up, it was like people thought I was committing career suicide. And I know a lot of you guys are younger here and might not know who my band was, but so my band, we played in 2000. they're laughing. But we were a band from like 1998 to about 2004, and we put out a couple of pretty big records.
Yeah, absolutely.
And toured the world, and we're doing really well. And by on paper, it would be easy to say, oh, they should keep making records. This is going well. But we had gotten to a point where relationships were a little strained. We still loved each other, but it wasn't. There was a sense that if we went back in the studio, it might not be magic the way the other things had been, right? And so we just made a really mature decision for guys as young as we were to take a break. And in that break, I made music, and I made what I felt like was some of my best music ever. Yeah. And then I was like, I think I'm going to put this out as a record and start another project. And people were like, dude, that doesn't work. You can't do that. You're in a band already. It's doing well. Just stay doing that. And luckily, I had a few people who believed in the music like I did. And it was so important that I made that change, because it also gave me the strength to do it again. It gave me the strength to say, oh, you've done this once before. It's scary. You might have to build everything from scratch.
Yep.
But it's where your heart is. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, you want to be smart in the way you make decisions when you're building a career, but you can't make those decisions out of fear, and you can't stay out of fear in a situation that isn't inspiring you, because to live and breathe in this industry, inspiration is at the core of what will steer you and what will make you successful.
Yeah, completely. And that, like you're saying, it's also necessary because obstacles keep coming up.
Yeah.
Right? the unknown. Somebody says, even just the process of working a record. People don't talk about the fact that, you get, if you have any success getting to do music, you have to do all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, can we not? Like, talk about yourself all the time? Sorry. It goes with it.
Believe me, I hear you.
So many musicians, it's like, wait, hold on a second. How many times do I have to go? Like, so when you thought about that, why'd you write that song? It's like, I just wanted to write the song.
Yeah, but I think that's like, but how lucky are we that we
incredible.
get to do a job that you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like, I had a conversation with a journalist today, and he was like talking about just like, encountering like some bands that were just like way over the grind of doing press.
Yeah,
and
ready to stop the grinding.
Yeah, which I've been there before, and I can empathize with it. But then I also just had this moment where it's like, man, I get to do this for a living.
Oh my God!
And if somebody wants to talk to me about doing it, it's like, I'll talk to them all day long. Like let's
totally,
let's lean into it. But
you're absolutely gratitude. I think I'm gonna give away the ending, which is I think part of your success is that you have that gratitude.
Right.
And I mean, because how lucky, and I'm like you, I'm, sort of bemoaning the narcissism that goes with our lifestyle, but to think that you get to share music, which is already like winning the lottery, to get to make your own songs. And you're right, it's such a privilege to get to share it. So kind of jumping through timeline, because we're talking about overcoming obstacles and making concrete changes. So something corporate, how would you describe not how others would describe it, but how would you describe what something corporate was doing musically? Because this is kind of you introduce yourself to the world.
Yeah.
That 9-year-old kid in the living room is now in this band that is sharing with a lot of people.
Well, I mean, it's funny, like, it's hard for me to properly analyze anything, but I always kind of laughed when people called us like a punk band, because
I don't know if that would be my description.
We were so far from punk rock, but we got signed to a punk label, so it was just almost like immediately like there was this label put on the band, and it was a real lesson in just like, wow, like you could do something in the world and somebody could just call it something else, and that's just what it's going to be forever, and
your ballet slippers are fantastic.
But I think now when you look at what's sort of culminated in this moment where there's this resurgence of punk and emo and the music that was coming out around the time that we sort of debuted, we're considered like a part of that scene, right? And people are saying like, that's a punk band, but at the time we weren't outcast. There was a whole world inside of that scene that adopted us and did help the band to really explode. But like when we showed up on the Warped Tour, and with me and my piano, and like we were just like California kids.
There's your first non-punk rock thing, a piano.
I was wearing flip-flops on stage. You know what I mean? Like we were like
you're out.
Yeah, we looked like a bunch of like surfers, and I was playing this piano, and we were like doing ballads while people were moshing. You know what I mean? And
mosh ballad. I'm working on a description right here.
Yeah, let's get we can write that later. But and I remember it being really confusing. It was electrifying too, because it's still like there was this energy that was building for us, but there was a lot of like dissent. There were sort of the tried and true bands of that scene that were like, these guys aren't punk, and we're like, we know, we're just here. Somebody asked us to come. For me, I always thought of us as like a pop band. I just always thought of us as like a straight up like pop alternative band,
of course.
And I grew up on, and something corporate too, all the guys that we grew up on classic rock music. It was like, at the time, what was cool that we were listening to was like Travis and Ben Folds 5 and Semisonic, and like those, those were like the bands, and Jimmy Eat World. So like there was overlap in that sense, the Get Up Kids, but yeah, it was weird. I think it also drove us to make different kind of music at some point. Our second record was like much more sort of ethereal and intentionally steered clear of a lot of the drum beats that might have been associated with punk rock. But I'm very grateful to the scene for taking us in. There's no question.
Well, all the labels, it's any description of music is sort of, it's only really there, I think, to try and give somebody a cue, like hang out with these kids, or these people, and so much of the industry is like, okay, well, this is what the line we're going to put them in, or the radio station we're going to play them on. And I think you have an earnest quality in your writing, so I could see the connection to sort of emo culture and that like meaningful words with energy. But you do, and I mentioned earlier.
I was very emotive, so I could take that.
Come on.
I could wear that label,
Come on.
But yeah, that's fair.
But I will say, as far as figuring out how you communicate as an artist, I mentioned earlier seeing you live and being like, wow, this guy. I mean, there is a punk rock kid like taking on the world, sort of energy that you have always that comes out of your music. And to be embraced by that scene, honestly, is awesome, and it's hard because they don't welcome everybody.
Well, I did always have a problem with authority, so I think that there was a through line there somewhere in underneath. And I did when I get on stage, there is a thing that takes over. You know what I mean? For we talk about fear, we talk about the anxiety of performing or whatever it is. Yeah. But I feel truly at home on stage and willing to move my body and say things and do things that I would never otherwise do, but it's just something takes over, and it's truly home,
Right, I agree.
And so that certainly, and that was certainly a huge driver of what we do, and I think still is to this day, is what happens on stage.
Completely. So we kind of skipped over, touched on several kind of key touch points. Something corporate, you established this relationship with the fan base. You just talked about making that switch. So thinking about building a new team, not just a band, but building, you could call it Act 2, sort of a new band. Like you said, it started as, hey, I'm going to be creative. I'm not going to sit still if we're going to take a break. I'm a creator. I'm a writer. I'm a musician. I'm thinking about what's next. But talk about what that was like, because you do have that. Like you said, everybody looks at you. I remember for us when we started our own record company, pretty much everybody was like, "What is wrong with you?
Yeah,
like you have this sort of this look, and that doesn't make any sense." So with Jack's Mannequin, you're going, "Wait, now I need to kind of rebuild." What was that process like?
Really exciting. I think it was exciting because it was so organic, right? It really started with me calling Jim, my producer, up and saying, I've got 20 songs that I've written that would probably otherwise be the next Something Corporate record, but we're not doing that right now. Would you listen to them? He listened to them. He's like, and he called me. He's like, there's this one song on here, and I was like, what? One song? Did I
so there's one. Everything else, total crap.
Get ready for that, rejection, guys. Yeah, it happens. But I was like, well, let's go record that one song, And so we did, and we cut this one song, and it was like, the lights just went on for me. It was like, oh my gosh, this sounds new. This sounds fresh. This is exciting. And then it was just this slow process where it was like, there was a lot of change in my life. I was going through a breakup, and so I just started bringing a song in one at a time to Jim. And then CJ came in, and then it was me and Jim and CJ. And then we got through 6 of them. We're just cutting up live drum loops and stuff. We didn't have a drummer then. And then I played it for my manager, and he's like, "This is really good." And all of a sudden, there's labels running around. It was just this slow but kind of steadily progressing thing. Then it was like, well, we need some guitar. Then I called my guitar friend, and he came and stayed for the month. And then I was working on a Tommy Lee record at the time, and I was like, Tommy, will you play drums? He's like, I'll play the drums. And it was
that's how he talks, by the way.
Tommy's great. Yeah, I adore him, and he does kind of talk like that. But so it was there was just this inertia, right? And you couldn't be stopped, and the songs just kept on. I just kept on writing, and then we finally just got it to that place, and it was like Slingshot Engage, and we started on the road, and people just started hearing about it. I was really cautious not to let. We never promoted anything as this is Andrew from Something Corporate. We just put out the band name. I didn't even put photos out. We just kind of dripped the music out through the, at that point what was, MySpace and just different fan blogs and things like that. And it really started going.
So I'm thinking, you made me think of 2 things. One, talk about the difference in, you're the driving force. You are Jack's Mannequin. But you've created a band.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you didn't just say, here's my name. Well, talk about that because you're, I mean, obviously it's you
Yep.
that you then crafted a team,
Yep.
sort of a unit. What's the process like for you? Because I think the curiosity of no, I'm not just going to be Andrew McMahon. I want to have this name, this identity that's different.
I was embarrassed by the idea of like looking like I was trying to go solo. I mean, that was really it. Before I even put the band together, I had named the project because I was like, I just didn't want people to think that I had intentionally burned down my band to like be a star, you know, because it wasn't really the deal. I was planning on making another Something Corporate record. We were like on our summer vacations going like, let's be creative on our own, you know, and it just
You're
turned
like,
into
so guys.
you know, it just turned into this thing. And then yeah, I toured with this amazing band called River City High back in the day, and I just hired these 3 lunatic, brilliant musicians from Richmond, Virginia. They got on a plane, moved to California, and I mean, that's a whole other story. But
Let's tell that story.
Oh well, no, we were party animals. It was insane. It was like we were like living in L.A. and practicing every day and going out every night. And but they were incredible. And I still play with 2 of them. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that was fun too. Just like we had all this new music, and it was like, oh my God, I'm starting a band. You know, it was wild.
There's something that the fresh energy, the potential. You have that feeling of what could happen again, and that had to be invigorating.
I live for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I live for that feeling of like possibility. Right. There's a point where you stay in something long enough, the possibilities. You know, it's not to say they go away, but they become a little bit more knowable. You know, where I think when you take a leap, so many things can happen, and it could fail miserably, right? But something incredible could happen because you sort of shake the tree a little bit, you know. And I'm always reluctant to like encourage people to just be like, go burn it down and start over, you know, like that.
Burn it down, guys.
That's not really my thing. But I do think that if you have an instinct towards change, or if you feel stuck someplace, that there really is a lot of power in saying, you know, I can do this, you know, and it's worth moving. And even if I fail at this, it might open the door to the next thing, you know. And I'm a real big fan of that.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about, I've never been good at exercising a lot, but learning slowly recently about lifting weights. And one of the things to talk about is fail, good fail. Good fail. Like your point of where you're going to fail.
These are words that don't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I've never lifted a weight in my life.
Okay, well, here we go. No, sorry, that sounded really obnoxious
Can we do
when
it?
it came out. No, but the term, I have never done that until very recently, and the term fail.
Yeah.
To do a good fail. To fail well. Like, we don't hear that enough.
Yeah.
Right? Man, you failed fantastically.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the path. Yeah, you can laugh
Thanks,
at that.
Taylor.
Yeah. No, but we... So that segue was awkward, guys.
No, I know.
That was a fail on my part.
Yeah.
No, but so where I'm realizing we need to jump ahead. We need to go faster. Because I think we have about 15 minutes. This has been we could do 2 hours easily. So you mentioned MySpace. It made me think about technology and just the role in the evolving community as an artist, as a band, like you know, started with licking stamps and sending stuff to people. Now technology changes everything. You can reach people. You can build community. You can build connection between fans. And now you succeed on a second band. Jack's Mannequin reaches a whole new group. You now have this new, and then you talked about your third act.
Yeah.
You say, no, I'm going to change again. But just kind of talk to me about what it's like to be an artist today in that third act. Because we're talking about this idea of evolution and challenge, and you clearly are very much pushing to the next. You're proactive. But one of the things is your surroundings change as you move through life, as you move through a longevity career. You don't have the same tools. Social media, the internet, community. Just talk about that a little bit.
I mean, my regular joke is like the only constant in the music business is that it's going to be different next year than it was last year. I mean, it is. And I do think that, I mean, obviously technology has been a part of my music career from the beginning. You know, we built like one of the first web pages for bands when we were kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These were like new things at the beginning. I'm admittedly like just I got a cell phone and a computer and I look at, I'm not a techie guy and never have been. I've always resisted. And so it is a peculiar moment for me in music right now. And it's one that I'm willing to meet, but it's not natural for me. The idea of me wanting to make a TikTok is very far from my mindset.
It's not going to happen.
But no, but it has happened, and I think it's really been a lesson for me to say, are you going to be the cynical old guy who says it was better last year when I didn't have to do this, or are you going to try and find a way that feels organic and authentic to yourself? And just try and participate. And look, and that may be a huge fail as well. But I also am a real believer that if you want to compete in any space, whether it's music or otherwise, you better be willing to meet the game where it's at. You know. And if you take a stand against something, that's okay too. But you also have to understand sometimes if you take those stands, it might leave you out of the race, you know, and I'm very firmly in the race. Like I really believe that if you're making music, you should be making music that you want as many people in the world to hear, and that you feel like it's important enough that it should be shared. Yeah. And so you have to do what you have to do to make it possible, you know. And so I am in a tricky moment in my journey, because I'm looking around and going like, I might want to hire one of you guys to do my TikTok. Like,
he's actually begging, please.
Yes. Is there anybody, please save me?
Could someone not put that on my list?
But the point is just beyond that. I think I have so much respect for the younger artists that are coming up, because I think the level of creativity is so next level. The amount of juggling between these spaces so effortlessly, I'm blown away by and inspired by. And I think you just, as an artist, you have to figure out where you fit and how you can make the greatest impact. And I'm looking at that every day and have been for 20 plus years, you know, and we'll see where it takes me.
Well, I want to make sure to touch on a couple things, but stick with this for a second before we move on to technology, because what I think about the technology, what we've now experienced as artists, and I know you've seen this, is we had a time where this idea of going direct to fan was very hard.
Right.
Because the pipeline, you're talking about the pipeline, it was press, it was radio, it was print.
Gatekeepers.
It was gatekeepers. And so here we are on the other side of the other side, which is, you have to remember how amazing what it is we experience right now. We are live streaming to people around the world. We are communicating directly. You can get a comment or get a communication directly to that artist. You have artists that have more power directly than any of their partners. You know, what does Taylor Swift decide she wants to say tomorrow about, breakfast? And these are huge leaps, but it does also mean, as an artist, you have to decide. That's a part of how you decide who your identity is with the world, because you may go, you know what, I kind of want. It's okay to leave some mystery. I'm not going to share my breakfast. I'm going to share my art. You talked about upstairs. Yeah. I think, there's a million things going on in the world. There's a million, politics and blah 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 blah. I think I want to start with love. Yeah. I think I'd like to kind of love everybody and talk about music and have that be where that's where we forge a relationship. Yep. That's me paraphrasing you, but I think that's a really important thing to put out into the world, which is, hey, these are all amazing tools. Yep. But how you use them is also part of who you are as an artist as well, because you're telling people how to feel about you.
And it has to be done for the right reasons, right? You have to the way that you choose to market yourself and put yourself out there, and I think that's a corny way to say it. Just the way you want to be seen in the world is you're curating something for people to see. I do have a lot of respect for the fact that a lot of that is so not curated anymore. It's just like really all out there, but it's such a different thing. Like for me, it was like I got dressed for the photo shoot. I was like, I don't want to see what I look like in the morning. You know what I mean? It's not pretty, but every now and again, I'll take a picture in the morning, I guess now, You just got to choose.
But you don't have to.
No, I only do it when it feels like
that's right. Okay, well, I want to touch on one thing, because I think it also speaks to, again, getting through things. You were diagnosed with cancer, and you went through something very difficult personally. And you really, I mean, I know that was deeply personal, of course, and on the other side of that battle, and I'd love for you, in your words, to talk just a little bit about what you're comfortable talking about.
Yeah.
You not only survived, you then launched the Dear Jack Foundation and have focused on also advocating and bringing attention and support to young people that are going through similar things to what you experienced. That's an important part of your story because it shows, again, the resilience and then kind of turning something that you know has been challenging into something that has made a difference for people. And I know it's important to you.
Yeah, very.
Just give us a little, tell us a little bit about what that was like, and then what you're doing today with the foundation, how that's kind of what that exists now.
Yeah, so I was 22 when I was diagnosed with leukemia. A huge component of that, I mean, the treatment, I'm so fortunate to be here and to be alive 17 years later. And in the time that I was being treated, it was, I managed okay. I was very fortunate. My sister was a match for a stem cell transplant that saved my life. I was at peace through a lot of the process of that fight. It was also, as I was releasing that first Jack's Mannequin record, it came out, the record came out the day I was transplanted with my sister's stem cell. So it was like this crazy, it all felt kind of faded, and I was like, okay, I'm okay with this. I'm on the right path. Whatever this is, I'll do this. But the aftermath was really quite brutal, and I didn't even really recognize it, you know. So being sick that young, going through any real trauma at that age, you know, you don't always have people around you who have experienced something similar. It's a time when you want to feel fearless, you want to feel free, you're discovering so many new things about yourself.
So you can't show weakness, really, or you feel like you're not supposed to talk about it?
Right, and I think for me, it was like so many people wanted me to be a hero on the other side of my cancer, right? Like, you did it, you know, and I appreciated that, but it didn't feel that way at home. For me, I felt really lost. I felt really confused. I felt like something had been taken from me, and then I felt guilty about feeling that because I was a survivor and I should be so lucky that I should be, you know. So it was so layered and so such a dynamic process, and I sought no therapy for it, and there's just a lot of bumps in the road for a lot of years. And our mission at the Dear Jack Foundation is to build programs for young people that are in treatment currently, to try and we do a wish granting program to try and give them little pieces of hope, little bright spots throughout their cancer journey. But the other component that I'm really proud of is we work with survivors and their partners as they enter remission. We do these retreats for where we bring 6 couples together and try and prepare them for what's on the other side of cancer, because it's the least talked about thing in when it comes to trauma. It's like you survive the trauma, right? It's like oftentimes it's what's on the other side and trying to figure out who you are after something so mind-blowing enters your life.
Right.
And so that program has been very powerful for us, and we're doing a lot in the mental health space. We work with a organization called Find Your Anchor. We send out mental wellness boxes to patients that are just diagnosed, or to anybody that reaches out to try and give them resources to help them navigate their journey.
That is a lot to have put that together, and I know you've made a difference in people's lives.
Thanks.
And seriously, and anybody that's built anything knows that it is not just take your experience and bear it, but to then try and turn it around. And though you don't feel like a hero, you have been a hero to people because of that. I mean, you've given energy, and hey, I see you, and who knows what other paths will be influenced by that choice.
And it's been good for me too. I think it's made a lot of difference in my life, being able to try and just, to try and be a leader for young people in that space, because it is a hard time to be sick, and I just want people to feel seen, and that was a thing that I don't think my wife or I felt when we were in that process. And I'm so glad there's so much more going on in the mental health space these days, and that it is a much more part of the conversation. And I think anybody that can do anything to destigmatize therapy and the need to take care of yourself is all good in my book.
Absolutely. I can't believe it. We're almost at the end. I want to just touch on a couple things before we wrap.
Yes.
It's been so great.
Yeah, it's so nice to talk to you. And
so
thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
There are, of course, students, here that are making decisions about majors, making decisions about what I do. I know that there's no one-liner, but I mean, sort of, do you have if you wanted sort of a a takeaway for people at this point? They're right at that decision, like,
Yeah.
here we go next. This is where I'm leaving maybe one stage into the next. Sort of takeaways that you want to leave with somebody. You know what? Here's what I learned. Or what's the sort of closing comment to this community?
I mean, obviously y'all are here because you work in music, right? And I think you probably all have an individual passion that's aligned with that somewhere. I think leaning into that passion and really exploring it and accepting that it's going to be a lot of work, right? Like, this is one of the hardest businesses out there.
For sure.
And I don't say that to discourage you. It's actually one of the greatest businesses to work hard in. Because if you're working hard in this business,
I love that.
Yeah, you love
greatest business to work hard in is a great phrase.
Because we have so much fun. I mean, it really is it's a fun industry. Prepare yourself for the work. Follow the thing that really is the most exciting to you, because it's going to be the best way to get engaged enough to really, to take on whatever apprenticeships you need to. Get with people who know the role that you want to play later in life. Find mentors.
Yep.
Find people who will teach you. I mean,
That's great.
I never sought mentors, but I found mentors. There were points where I was like, oh, I need to make a record. We find a producer, and all of a sudden he's teaching me, like, just how to change these chords and just this way. And all of a sudden, and it's just getting baked into what I do. And I think if you can take your energy out of school and into the field that you want, and be persistent and bang on doors and tell people, if you say once, I want to come work for you, I'll do the coffee runs, I'll do whatever it is, and they say no, go back again, and just show people.
Be relentless, yeah.
Yeah, and be supportive of whoever you're working for, because the people I've always elevated in my world have been the ones who've just proven they were hungry. And sometimes being hungry doesn't mean you're doing the job you want right away, but if you have a good mentor and you're doing what they need in the process, you will elevate, and some of the most talented people know. I mean, they walked through fire for their mentors and ended up, getting Grammys. I know one just last week, so it's pretty
amazing.
Yeah.
That is great advice, in my opinion. So this has been fantastic.
Thanks,
dude.
bud.
You're amazing. I want to say a special thanks to everybody in the GRAMMY U community and to Mastercard for being the sponsor of this masterclass. We also want to encourage you guys to follow GRAMMY U on social media. Stay connected to this community that is promoting conversations like this and resources for students that are pursuing music career. Dude, amazing to have you. Andrew McMahon, give it up, everybody.
Thanks for having me, you guys. I appreciate it.